This is Dave Meltzer with Entrepreneurs the Playbook, and I think I've found a person more connected than me. That's right, Shelley Zalis, the CEO of Female Quotient. And we're going to get down and dirty about some sensitive topics, I think, and I hope I don't get in too much trouble because I have the best intentions with 3 daughters and a wife. But I think you're sitting in an extraordinary place as an entrepreneur. The biggest issue that I see as an entrepreneur is not global, warming or any of the other issues. It's simple equality. And the differentiator right now that I see inequality is between men and women. And it's so confusing. There's so many different variables, legalities, emotions. And I feel as a CEO myself stuck half the time that I feel like I don't know what to do. Can you help me shed some light on, as an entrepreneur, some of the critical business issues that we face and how we can resolve them today?
Yeah, first of all, I'm so thrilled to be here with
I
you
don't
today.
let people say that, but thank you. This is a big treat.
I am. It's a treat for me too. And I think these conversations are really important to have because we talk about taboo topics, things we're afraid to talk about. And I think in today's day and age, we have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And unless we can open up these conversations and talk about the things that are on our mind or the things that scare us, we will not make progress. We will continue to go backwards. And, the United Nations launched something called the Global Goals, and there are 17 global goals. Global goal number 5 is gender equality. And Sheryl Sandberg just did a big study that shows that 50% of men today don't want to work with women because they're afraid to do or say the wrong thing. The truth of the matter is, most people are good with good intentions. They're not Harveys.
Yeah.
But we just need a new education and a new awareness. And, men are just so afraid to do or say the wrong thing. But if we can talk about that and what might be okay to say to me, an old lady at the age of almost 58 versus what you say to someone else. If you tell me I look nice, I'm going to say thank you. If you tell someone else they look nice, it might bother them. So there's 2 things we need to talk about. One, we need to talk about the topics. And second, people have to express what makes them uncomfortable and give someone the benefit of the doubt. So the first time it's awareness and education. The second time you make that mistake, shame on you.
Time is such a difficult variable right now because things are moving so quickly. And so as you're speaking, I'm thinking to myself, the other day I used the term sweetie, right, and to my daughter. And, not in the workplace because I would be too afraid, even though I don't know whether or not that's a good thing to say or a bad thing to say. I said it to my own daughter who got offended.
Yeah, of course. Well, would you say to the guys, sweetie?
No, right. And so there's an education. But we have to rethink our education, our financial, our political, our corporate structures. All of these different things have to be rethought beyond just raising awareness. And one of the difficulties I see with this business issue, and this is a business show, the Playbook to Success, and you are at the forefront of educating people and motivating them, inspiring them, is I'm one of those people, literally, like my life is dedicated to equality. And Unstoppable Foundation is about protecting young women who have just been, discriminated against for years. I raise millions of dollars. And yet, even as I believe myself to be enlightened, it's so difficult for me to figure out, how do I build a business with strong women in it and communicate effectively and learn the lessons that I'm supposed to learn? And I'm on I think, a farther end of the spectrum than most people, and it's really difficult for me. What are some of the things I can do to help myself?
Yeah, first of all, we're all learning. So, and when you use the word unstoppable, I always say when purpose meets passion, you're unstoppable. And where there's a will, there's a way. We all use those expressions, and it's really true. We are in a new day and age where these things have been happening forever. This is not new behavior. It's that we're all now sharing. And that's how we move forward in a positive, proactive way. And so I don't think it's about rethinking, unlearning behavior. I always say the rules of the workplace were written over 100 years ago by men for men when women just weren't in the workplace. It's not about rethinking. It's not about undoing. That's very hard. It's about shutting the door and opening a new one. a new one of equality in our DNA. That's just what it is. All people are equal. We're different, and difference is our greatest strength. And what's happened in the past, I mean, I was the only female CEO, top 25, my entire career. I knew I thought differently. I knew I acted differently, but I was always wrong because I was the minority. Mm-hmm. I wrote a new thing the other day in my head. I just have to play it out, where it's the collective minority. The collective minority is stronger than the majority. The collective minority is greater than the majority.
Yeah, with the segmentation.
Think about that.
I agree with segmentation, for sure.
For sure. And so for me, my difference, I used to hide it. Sarah Jessica Parker says trying to be a man is a waste of a woman.
Nice.
We all bring unique aspects to the table. If we were all the same, we would be unnecessary. Oscar Wilde says, be yourself because everyone else is taken. But we hid our strengths. Now we're bringing them. That's why we say diversity is good for business. Gender, race, age, religion, intersectionality, that creates diversity of thought.
Absolutely. And there's the embodiment of being a woman. And then there's also now the energy, right? Like I carry a lot of feminine energy. And we look for different energies that exist within the workplace. I was with the CMO of Playboy Enterprises, which has been Rachel Weber,
awesome.
Bernard. She's a Columbia woman like you. And I was so just impressed, but moreover, really conflicted because I saw the brand from the 50s that my grandfather hid magazines under his bed and talked about the articles that he was reading. And I was a 12-year-old stealing them. And yet, here's this extraordinary woman talking about some of the historical aspects of what Playboy has been able to do for equality, either that passed me over, but even moreover, her vision for the future, which to me represented a lot of things that you're helping to motivate, to raise the awareness of. But yet, I think time, how long, in things that will happen, how long do you feel this closing of the door, for example? Is it a life? Is it like Moses? We have to go through the desert for 40 years and old crogies have to die off and start anew? Or can it be something that can be stopped and we can do that?
It's an evolution and it's a step change. I mean, according to the World Economic Forum, it'll take over 108 years to realize gender parity in the C-suite and over 202 years to close the wage gap.
And how does that make you feel? Because I'm curious.
That's ridiculous. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And we talk about unconscious bias. If I use the word unconscious, I'm conscious.
I love that.
It's the silliest thing I've ever heard. I sell candy in my lounges for $1 to men and 80 cents to women because that's the gap. On average, women make 80 cents on the dollar. Black women, 63 cents on the dollar. Latinas, 54 cents on the dollar. 54 cents on the dollar. Today is Latina Equal Pay Day. So it's a wonderful day to be talking. Why?
That's awesome.
And I actually don't think you can lump the women category or gender into a bucket. I think it's a caregiving issue. I think one of our greatest challenges is caregiving, and caregiving is still predominantly a female issue, and leadership is still predominantly a male issue, a white male issue for the most part. When you look at leadership in CEOs, there's less than 5% of CEOs that are women. So that's where our gap is. So when we use terms like we need male allies, we're only giving men them more power. Gender equality is not a female issue, and it's not a male issue. It's a social and economic issue, and leaders need to fix the problem by being conscious. And so when you talk about what do, you're a conscious leader because you are stepping back and saying, I want to be better. I want to make sure I treat people equally and give everyone equal opportunity. And I think about the equitable places that people are at. That's conscious leadership. And so as long as we have conscious leaders at the helm, we will close the gap, I hope, sooner than in the next 5 years. What's complicated? If you see you have a gap, do the Mark Benioff from Salesforce, close the damn thing.
Yeah.
It's going to cost you money.
Mark's an old friend of mine, and I am sitting here thinking about, when we were in Austin the first time I met you. And
At South by Southwest.
South by Southwest. And it was the first time that I experienced both sides of, equality, meaning that this is a man problem. as well as a woman problem, right? We have to include. It has to be inclusive, and a lot of the difficulties that have occurred over the last decade is it's not inclusive of everyone, right? It's a conflictual issue that has created even a further separation. Where your approach is very inclusive of everyone. To hey, let's raise our awareness and figure out how we can expedite. I am the chancellor of Junior Achievement University, one of the largest charities in the world. Over 50% of our entrepreneurs now are women. When I was a kid, that was unheard of.
Yeah, well, less than 2% of funding for VCs go to women. And so if you take your playbook and break it down into steps, into play by play, there are 3 key buckets that we just need to take on. Parity is the wage gap, how we pay people. Leadership issue. Policies. How do we create policies that allow everyone to bring their best selves to the table? How do we attract and retain the best talent, right? 3 is pipeline. How do we create a more robust pipeline? And it's not just filling the pipeline with diversity, right, and recruiting. You also need hiring. You need to have diversity on your hiring team. Because no matter how fat your pipeline is with diversity, if you don't have a diverse hiring team, they're still going to pick the people that quote unquote look or what I think act like them. So those are 3 key buckets. And when I break those down, it's not about a male or female. It's about a leader creating in the workplace the decisions that will allow those 3 key buckets to work in everyone's favor.
Yeah, and there's so many different things that happen. I'm going to share something and illuminate it with you, just like I did with the Sweetie comment, because I think it's important. I was on an interview just yesterday, a really big podcast, and one of the questions was, who are your top 5 Hall of Fame entrepreneurs of all time? And so for various reasons, I brought up Einstein. For non-political reasons, I brought up Donald Trump, brought up I think Elon Musk or someone, but I get to the 5th one, and I was about to say my mother. Mm-hmm. And he said, before I could say my mother, the interviewer, do you have a woman? And I wanted to switch my answer. And the complexity of what you're saying is that I don't know many successful men that don't respect, honor, and my mom's my hero. And yet in the workplace, I'm sitting here going, Oprah is like the one entrepreneurial woman that came to my mind like this. But I'm sitting there going, how is it all these men like me, have gone through this entire process, oblivious, right? I go to things and someone will say, do you notice there's no women here? And I'll have to look around again and go, how do I not see that?
But women wouldn't come up with them either, because we have been invisible in history. 2020, we're celebrating the 100-year anniversary of women's rights to vote. Women are invisible in history. They've either been written out of history or invisible in history, and we don't showcase. So one of our biggest opportunities, I don't think it's a problem, it's an opportunity. One of our greatest opportunities, I'm the co-founder of #SeeHer. If you can see her, you can be her. And how do we accurately and realistically portray girls and women in media and entertainment? And when you think about media, media defines culture. Culture defines change. Change defines action. That's how change happens. The story, Hidden Figure. Did you see Hidden Figures?
Yeah, of course.
Hidden
Loved
Figures.
it.
Who knew? Who ever talked about Katherine Johnson creating the first trajectory to the moon for Alan Shepard? Who talks about Grace Hopper, who wrote the first computer language? Who talks about a woman named Susan Kare? Steve Jobs gets all the credit for Apple. It was a woman named Susan Kare that created the friendly icons, that made the Macs these friendly, easy to use, computing systems. No one talks about them. So the more we start sharing the stories, the more top of mind, female innovators and entrepreneurs and badass women are going to start coming front and center. But if we don't share their stories and we talk about all the men all the time because there's an overabundance and there's less women, and that's a whole other podcast for us, of course they're not going to be top of mind. We need to be pushing these stories. Look at the statues all over the country. They're all men.
Yeah.
I think the female is Minnie Mouse.
And looking into the sports realm with my sports back is even more egregious. I mean, to me, I loved the women's soccer team story, because at least it shed a light on what's going on completely, because
they use their voices too, or else it would have been invisible again.
Exactly.
And they would have kicked ass and it would have disappeared. And the crazy thing is, men wanted Rapinoe, or Alex, all these shirts. They didn't make them for men.
Right.
They didn't make. And by the way, when women want the jerseys, there's jerseys, for every. But there were no male sizes, male shirts.
Until fantasy football, just so you know, the National Football League is the most popular sport 2-1 for all women. But before fantasy football, there was no women's styled shirts sold by NFL.com. None. Before and yet, my wife's been a huge fan since, we've had season tickets forever, and they've never marketed both ways to understand that this is not a male sport or a female
Guess who does the purchasing? Over 85% of purchase decisions are made by women.
More beer.
Including men's clothes.
Beer. People think beer is a masculine beverage. More beer, women buy extraordinary, I forget the percentage of beer in America.
Hey, listen, love ABI. I mean, women are... I can't remember what the statistic is. I think over 40% of beer purchases are made by women drinking beer.
So you get to travel around the entire world. You are one of the most sought after keynote speakers, not just because of the topic, but because of your experience, knowledge, and the way that you articulate to teach and motivate people to look at things differently, right? Dr. Wayne Dyer, who's one of my mentors, change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And from the time that I've met you and follow you and, really try to learn from you, because I have to change the way I look at things. Out of any person that's ever been on the podcast, and what I try to learn from the playbook to success, when I look across this and was so excited that you came in, is that I don't see everything, right? And that's what I think my podcast and my questions were all aimed at is, I need to learn to change the way I look with my own children, with the charities that I'm involved with the corporate world. I need to change the way that I look at things so the things I look at change. And I can't allow it to take 108 years or 200 and whatever years, because I want to see it in my lifetime. And unless something radically changes, I'm not going to be here to see that. What piece of advice would you give? I'm always a lower the bar, let's get started, nothing happens till we move. There is a huge audience out there that wants to do the right thing. They're like me. How can we take the first step in changing the way that we look at things?
Well, I think it starts with awareness for yourself. Leadership is not about age, it's about action. We are all leaders. We all have the power to make a difference, and it's a choice. I always say equality is a choice, unconscious bias is an excuse. So we have to stop making excuses. And once you are aware, now it's a choice of what you're going to do. So if you want to be better, there's plenty of ways to be better. We all can be better. We all have bias.
And where does forgiveness fall into this? Because I think a lot of times we neglect the awareness to forgiveness, that there's a reality that people have made mistakes in the past and we can't persecute everybody for the traditional, hereditary, all the different things that have happened. Where does forgiveness fall into this?
You can't rewrite the past. Mm-hmm. And by the way, we were silent then. It didn't it was. I remember as, a young executive, I was sitting in a meeting and someone asked me, of course, as the woman, to go get the coffee. And I said, I'll get the coffee if you take the notes. I had to find my voice because no one was giving it to me at the time. So I think low-hanging fruit. Listen to every voice. If you're invited to a meeting, you invite people to a meeting, you invited them for a reason. Listen to everyone's voice. Like this whole interruption effect thing, I don't even understand. If someone's interrupting you, say, excuse me, wait a minute, I'm not done yet. Or if you hear someone being interrupted, say, she's not fit. Her voice matters. Like everyone's voice matters at the table. Simple thing to do. When you're hiring, you need at least 30% for there to be a transformation of culture. Culture's not going to change with one person. You're still going to be the minority, right? If you truly want culture to transform with all kinds of, people at the table, it's not just about representation, it's about reflection. And everyone needs to come to work feeling like they belong and they can bring their best selves to the table. So hire smart. you know, and, you know, it's not just the right thing to do. It's good for your business. Diversity is good for your bottom line, no matter what. You know, 3, create this culture, you know, where you adopt and adapt life stage. Arianna Huffington at the World Economic Forum said to me one day, I don't understand why we do exit interviews. Everyone's gone. Why don't we do entry interviews? Then I started thinking, why don't we do life stage interviewing? At every stage of life, we all have different needs. Whether it's taking care of your young children growing up, you know, we all were sneaking out of the office to go to the soccer game. Why? Is there a rule written in a policy handbook that says do not have a life outside of work? Don't go to your kids' events. We think this rule was written.
Yeah.
But there is no rule. You know, and one of the things I talk
do that as a male.
It's ridiculous. So I have a no regret policy. I always think forward because I never want to look back in life and say shoulda, woulda, coulda. I think forward and say, well, I feel bad if I miss this event. If I'm going to feel bad, I don't do it. And at the end of the day, in a year from now, no one's going to remember the hour you missed at work, but I can guarantee you will remember or regret the moments you missed that were important in life that you can't get back. You can always get the other meeting.
Or worse, your kids will remember.
And I used to say to my kids, and Jake will tell you this, I used to say, tell me what's important to you. Not just, oh, you're going to miss me for missing me, but you tell me what matters to you, and I will never miss those moments.
I think that's an important question I ask of my employees, my kids, my wife, my mom. My relationship with my mom changed because she was projecting insecurity because of her perception. I was so busy that I didn't love and appreciate her. And I literally asked her, what most matters? I'm 51 years old, Mom. What most matters to you? And she said, your health, your happiness, the fact that you love me and appreciate me. I said, you know what? I'm going to dedicate a minimum of 1 minute a day, every day, to tell you how happy and healthy I am and to tell you how much I love and appreciate you.
Mom, you raised a good kid.
And it's changed my entire relationship. She was having me do things to prove that. And it was not conducive to a good relationship, and come fix it. She wanted me to prove my love and appreciation for her. Instead, now it's very efficient, and she's super happy. Normally, I end with I'm not going to because you've already proved it with a legacy question. I think the legal term res ipsa loquitur, that which speaks for itself, would best be your legacy because of the extraordinary impact that you're having on the world to what I consider the number one issue that we should raise awareness and hopefully change the way we look at things. And the things we look at will change. As a father of 3 daughters and of somebody who's destined to help you with that cause, I appreciate you coming into the playbook and anything I do to support you. Extraordinary person, extraordinary business. I have Shelley Zalis. She is the CEO of Female Quotient. You got to check her out and the company out. Let's all get together, make this world one. That means we're all the same and we're all different at the same time. This is Dave Meltzer with Entrepreneurs, the Playbook.